Alright guys, welcome back to Squarebox Games. Today we've got something special for you. Ryan and I are trying something a little bit different. We're just on a video chat right now. We just saw the Fantasy Flight Games kind of chat about Star Wars Unlimited where they gave a little more details, and we just wanted to talk with you guys or let you experience kind of our thoughts on what we think this game might be about after hearing about all this news. So Ryan, first impressions from what you've heard so far.
So I'm excited. I never got into Star Wars Destiny, so I sort of missed the opportunity for that. And there's some controversies there, but it sounds like they're doing this right. It sounds like they're really taking a lot of opportunity to think about the community, the game itself, the collectors, and they've invested the time that they need to launch a successful product that. I mean, we haven't seen any gameplay yet, but it sounds like it's going to be fun. So that's sort of my initial thoughts is like they've really taken the opportunity to look at the mistakes they've made, look at things that are successful, and put out a successful product that is going to hopefully be long-lasting several years down the road. I mean, you said the other day when we were talking that most of the stuff that you've played from Fantasy Flight has been a good product and you've enjoyed it. And I've had the same experience, so I hope that this will be something that is going to be a long-lasting thing. And it certainly seems like with as much time as they've invested, I think it's going to be.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the hesitation the community has had once this game got announced was really, are they going to continue to support the game or are they going to abandon it? Destiny got abandoned, and it kind of seemed pretty abrupt, but researching and hearing things after the fact, Fantasy Flight was kind of forced into it to a degree. It was really the manufacturing of the die that were the problem. That was kind of the holdup, and because of those issues, they kind of had to stop production of the game. I think creatively they still had content they wanted to do and sets they wanted to push forward with, but they did mention, they referenced Destiny and kind of that hesitation that people have had, and they said, they didn't outright say we stopped production because of the die, but they did say we don't have any gimmicks in this game, it's just going to be like the cards. So they kind of basically said, the reason Destiny got shut down, we've eliminated for this game. It sounds like they're excited. It seems like they've pulled a lot of resources. They made a big deal about making it their own website for this game, which lets them do things that they weren't able to do in the past. I think for organized play, they said you can make an account on the Star Wars Unlimited website, and as you participate in organized events, you can potentially earn points to kind of get yourself maybe into like qualifying matches or galactic championships or whatever they call them. But yeah, so how do you feel about the mechanics? They didn't really show too much. What do you think this game's going to be like?
Yeah, I think the one thing that excited me when they were talking about it in this first look was the games can be fast. Being an adult, having work, having all sorts of stuff going on in your life, I really appreciate when things are fun and they don't take a lot of time. So just the idea, like, man, I can get together with my friends. Hopefully we can sit down and, hash out a few games. It's not going to be like a more long-form game. It's like, man, we got to plan a whole day to do just this one game. It's like, man, we could get together after work real quick. We could, get together on a Saturday in the afternoon, and maybe we don't have 3 hours. Maybe we only have half an hour. And we can get several opportunities to play rounds of this game, maybe even switch things up in between. I think out of everything that I've heard so far, that was probably my favorite point that they talked about was this isn't going to be long form. It's not going to be something that has to take an hour or 2 hours. You can get something in, you can enjoy the game, switch it up, try something else. So I think that sounds really cool, and I hope the mechanics present themselves in that way.
So I remember them saying you could get 3, 4, maybe 5 games in within an hour, which I'm like, that's great. I know you and I both like Legion a lot, but it is kind of a chore to set up. It's a time dedication, so
it is.
I feel like we're gonna have the ability to play this game on the fly a lot quicker and a lot easier. Yeah, we can fit it in an evening or on a Saturday, and don't have to dedicate like an entire afternoon just to play this one game. And so one thing they did mention that makes me think the game, will kind of keep that pace, kind of like on Match where you only have two actions per player and it goes back and forth. To me, this feels like a successor of Destiny, and I know you didn't really play it, but one of the things I liked about Destiny is you did one thing, then your opponent did one thing, back and forth. So there weren't these like big long turns like you can have in other competitive card games like Magic or Pokemon or something like that, where turns may end up taking a while and you're just kind of sitting there waiting for something to happen. But just the one action back and forth they mentioned will be the same in this game. Like you do one thing, your opponent does one thing. And as for the mechanics, I was kind of debating because you've got like Magic. I mean, I say that a couple times, but it is kind of the premier trading card game that this game's probably going to try to compete with. And in that game, like your opponent and you have a life counter, and you're trying to get the opponent's life down to zero. And like Pokemon, which is one of the other bigger games, you yourself don't have a life. It's just you're trying to eliminate six of your opponent's characters, basically. And to me, from what I've heard about this game, even though we haven't had many mechanics revealed, and I think it's going to be a little more like Magic because I noticed they said you're going to have a base and a leader. Now, I know the Star Wars deck building game they recently came out with, the point of the game is to get your opponent's base down to zero, and I think you get three bases, and that's the end of the game. But I did notice on some of the cards they revealed, there's a Princess Leia card that says, like, draw the top card of your deck, it costs 5 less. If your base has 5 or less health, it's free. So that makes me think we are tracking like the health of the base, and that probably is going to determine. That's probably going to be the goal of the game is to get your opponent's base down to zero. So I like that style. I think I prefer that more than like the Pokemon's just defeat 6 characters and that's it. But man, I'm excited. And so I mentioned that they've said a couple times that the decks are going to be based on around a leader. Like you've got a central card.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be a strong figure like Luke or Vader or Palpatine or someone like that. What do you think about that? Like building your deck around one specific card for your strategy.
I like that because in some of these other more popular trading card games, oftentimes you're basing your decks off of a central theme. Like Pokemon is usually in energy. You got more your typing. Magic, you've got your different energy types, and it's like, all right, I've got my blue deck or I've got my black-white deck. So I like that. I like the idea of having, hey, we've got, Luke, and Luke has the Rebels, and this is my Rebel deck. I think that's cool because in some of the other games that I've played, it's like, I got my Fire deck, I got this deck. And so I think that's cool to me, especially with the theming of Star Wars. Star Wars just has this feel to it, and I really like that idea of being like, this is the Empire deck. Like, I've got, capital ships, I've got Darth Vader, I've got legions of stormtroopers, whatever they have, especially with this idea they talked about space battle and ground battle possibly, you have these components that I feel like as a Star Wars fan, I can like get engaged in, and make that deck central around that. So I really like the idea of that. I think it's gonna be like, as they said in the video, giddy to be able to be like, man, I've got my Rebel stuff here, and like I've combined it together, and like let's take on the Empire.
Yeah, no, that's going to be great. Um, so one concern I have is trading card games, the successful ones have had lasting staying power. Like if you think in your head, if you are familiar with trading card games, there's probably like 2 or 3 that you can name right off the bat, and that might be it. There's been plenty that have come and gone, but like Magic and Pokemon have really kind of stuck around. And I know Star Wars has had a few in the past, like the customizable card game from Decipher back in the day. Still has quite a few fans, but it's been out of production for 20 years. And the Star Wars trading card game that Wizards had made has been out of production for almost 20 years. So, what is this game going to have to do to like stay in the scene and have some lasting power to keep it going for more than just a couple years?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to manage power creep. that's something that in other games you've seen they introduce a new concept, and it can sort of nullify your whole deck. And if as a player, if you spend a lot of time and money building something, and it sounds like they're aware of that, because in the very beginning they were like, hey, we've got 250 unique cards in this first wave. That's a lot to balance, and it sounds like with that many cards that they're taking that into consideration. The next thing I think they're going to have to do is make it collectible, because you look back at like the craze that happened a couple of years ago with like Pokemon. It's like, hey, I've got all these first edition cards, like this Charizard, from 20 years ago. That's a foil that I got randomly, and now it's worth who knows how many dollars. But I think that's something that they also seem like they're taking into consideration of releasing these special cards, especially with their organized play events, and having opportunities to get something focusing on the collectors, because they're the ones that are kind of going to drive that desire for the secondary market, and that's going to let people get something and say like, hey, well, I got this and I may not need it, but somebody else might want that. And so I think helping to build that community around it. But the most important thing is it's got to be fun to play.
Yeah.
If it's not fun to play, then it might as well be baseball cards, which, I mean, that has their place, but that's not what their intention is here. So I'm really anxious to see the mechanics and see how this game actually goes down for a round.
Yeah, it sounds like throughout the rest of 2023, they're going to give us more information and probably delve into the mechanics of how the game is actually played. But, one thing I was thinking of, and you mentioned some of it, is not having a lot of people don't have a ton of disposable income to just buy the best cards. And they said there were going to be kind of two modes of organized play, a more competitive and a casual. But what they did mention was like the rarity of cards. There didn't seem to be, at least how I interpreted it, like there's not going to be like super rare cards that are going to give people an advantage competitively if they have spent a lot more money on the game. So like, hey, there's only one Darth Vader out there and it's the most powerful card, and if you don't have Darth Vader, you're not in the meta and you're not going to be competitive, in the organized level. But instead, it seemed like they mentioned their chase cards, like the real rare stuff, were just going to be like alternate art, holographic versions of cards that are already there. But competitively and mechanically, there were going to be no difference. So it sounds like if you didn't want to spend $500 to have like a top tier deck, you don't have to. But if you wanted to spend $500 to have like a nice looking, like holographic, rainbow art, like alternate art, special versions of a deck, you could, but competitively, you're not at an advantage because you spent more money. Like, you guys can still fight and even match. And I don't know of a game that's really done that before, and I think that's a pretty cool feature, especially from someone who really wants to play this game and would like to spend thousands of dollars on it, but I'm just not going to. That's not a wise decision. So I like that the more casual players that may not want to invest a bunch of time and money still have the ability to kind of keep up with the more intense competitive scene.
Well, I think that's going to invite players overall to get involved with the community, because you're not going to go, if you understand the game and you've invested a little bit in it, you're probably going to be able to go and compete, or at least have fun in a tournament, or just a play opportunity, and not just get destroyed. Because I mean, with some of these other card games, like you mentioned, people will go out and they gather all the best cards that you possibly can, and they buy their way to win. I mean, they understand the strategy, but like if you're a casual player and you go to compete, it's not fun to just get beat repeatedly and stand no chance. So yeah, I think that's a really cool mentality they're taking here. It's like, hey, for this to succeed, we've got to build a community, and it's built around play and fun, like at its core. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really cool thing to see if they can bring this together.
Yeah. Okay. So one more topic I want to bring up before we cut it off, because I don't want this to be like a 4-hour video. They mentioned they aren't limited in what content they can pull from for this game. They mentioned, they've got the films, the live action films, animated shows, a variety of animated shows with different styles, comics, books. I, I don't know if they would pull from the EU, but it sounds like they could if they wanted to. And they released the names of like the first 3 sets, which I think was Spark of Rebellion, which I assume would be original trilogy if it's not just New Hope, probably covering most of the original trilogy. Then like Shadows of the Galaxy, I think was the second one, and then Twilight of the Republic, which to me that seems like that could be not High Republic era, but not necessarily things that are just focused around the era of the 9 films, but maybe or 9 episodic films, but maybe some other eras too. So how do you feel about them, pulling and mixing and matching from multiple eras and sources of Star Wars right off the bat? Because a lot of other games, like Legion, for instance, it was Galactic Civil War, Rebels versus Imperials for a while, and then they added the Clone Wars later. But a lot of the games, they just start pretty much with the OT, and then they kind of expand from there and there. But it sounds like right off the bat, they may just be pulling from everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Star Wars, like at its core, is the movies. Arguably, like the original trilogy, like that's what's going to spark or kick off everything in most Star Wars expansion type media. But I love this idea. Like, hey, you really liked the Clone Wars era, like TV show. You might be able to get a Darth Maul with robot legs. Like that might be an opportunity. Or heck, man, if they pull in the EU, who knows? You don't know what options they have, but maybe you can get Kyle Katarn or some guys from Rogue One. Like I think that's an awesome opportunity that it doesn't seem like a card game, and that opens up the option for collecting and variety. So I think that's a really smart move. I know that there's lots of guys across at least the 9 films that I'd like to see or I'd like to have a hold of. Just as a collection standpoint, I think it'd be cool to certain particular cards, maybe a couple different versions of C-3PO. I think that would be cool to have the ability to have those instead of sort of being like locked into this one version. And again, who knows if they'll get into the EU? There's no telling. But if they did, man, that just opens up a ton of options. But at least with the media that's out there right now, they've got a really vast majority, and I think that's good for collectors. I think that's going to be a really good move because they're going to have lots of options to choose from.
Okay. Right before we go, one question off the top of your head. If you could pick one character to be in this game from all of Star Wars, who is it?
Kyle Katarn.
All right. Mine is Max Rebo. If they have a Max Rebo card, maybe it's his whole band represented. Maybe it's just him on his thing. I don't care. I want to see Max Rebo somehow incorporated. He could be like a support card. I don't need him to be a leader, but I want to see Max Rebo in this game.
I'd love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't want to take up more of your guys' time. Let us know if you like this kind of video, just this more discussion style. We may try to do more of that as we hear more about this game before we can actually start playing it ourselves. But let us know what character you guys want to see in this game. If you had to pick just one character from all Star Wars, it could be EU, comics, video games. I know a lot of people may like Cal Kestis, all that kind of stuff. Let us know who that is. But also be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. That means a lot to us. Ryan, I'm sure you want to say something about a notification bell.
Yeah, you know what? You can.
Yeah, all right. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.